back to another episode of Ignite Your Power, the Kathy Mou Podcast, where we help you create a bliss-off life rooted in nourishment, alignment, and your highest self. Today, I am joined by someone whose work sits at the intersection of science, intuition, and holistic healing. Melanie Murphy Richter, MS RDN. Melanie is a dynamic registered dietitian nutritionist, the 2023 Recognized Young Dietitian of the Year, and a leading educator in longevity and evidence-based nutrition. As the Director of Communications and Medical Science Educator at L-Nutra, she is on the front lines of helping people understand how nutrition shapes our health, our energy, and even our aging. She's also a graduate instructor at UC Irvine, where she mentors the next generation of healthcare professionals. But what I love most about Melanie is how she blends science-backed nutrition with holistic practices and healing rituals. Through her platform, Wholistic Ritual, her approach is grounded, accessible, intuitive, and deeply empowering for women who want to feel more connected to their bodies. She has been featured in Forbes, USA Today, Men's Health, and so much more. And today she's here to share her wisdom on longevity, nourishment, ritual energy, and the future of holistic wellness. So thank you, Melanie, for being here. I'm so honored and excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. What a grand intro. Here we go.
Of course, because you're so truly amazing.
I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So what got you actually into being a dietitian or a nutritionist and taking the holistic approach? The holistic approach.
Oh, yes, with a W.
Yeah.
I always tell this story because I hope that it's empowering for other people who might find themselves in this same spot. But I always knew that I loved nutrition, but I didn't know that I could make a career out of it. So when I was in college, I actually got my undergraduate in public relations and journalism. And in that time, I graduated, got my career going in PR, and I was super successful in this line of work and super miserable at the same time. Like I didn't like it. I didn't like the hours. I didn't like the people pleasing component of it. There was but financially it was doing great. Like from a client perspective, I was, succeeding in so many ways, but my body, and this is kind of leading, hopefully hyping up our conversation, but my body was internalizing my unhappiness. And I had IBS and IBD that was significantly impacting my life at that time. I had 25 pounds of inflammatory weight that my body just was not kicking because it was holding on to stress and anxiety and misalignment, I think, in my external life. And so one day I just sat down. I was like, I am not the person. I'm a very actionable person. I remember thinking like, this can't be my everyday. Like I'm not enjoying like waking up in the morning. It was getting to that point. I was like, I got to do something. And I was like, what? I was like, get back to the basics. What makes you happy? And I was like, I came back time again to the fact that I loved nutrition. I loved understanding what foods were doing inside the body and how they impacted our immune system. And I just loved Googling. I could geek out on it for hours. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. So I went back to get my master's degree. And I remember in my master's degree, I kept in the back of my brain, I knew that I wanted to do something holistic. I didn't want to do, I come from Western doctors and they're incredible. Western medicine is an incredible feat of acute care, but it falls short in chronic care management and which is most of the diseases we're seeing and the issues, autoimmune conditions and so on that we're seeing today. So I knew I wanted to do something more preventive and more holistic, but I didn't know what that meant until I got into my master's program and had my internship rotations and ended up interning at a private practice with another dietitian, just doing a ton of muscle testing and using Chinese herbal medicines and homeopathics to treat things like parasites and mold and yeast and all of these different things. And it just opened my brain. These are not things that I knew existed before and then once that door was open for me, I was like, oh my God, this is what this is. Like this, there's so much more to this than meets the eye. So that was my roundabout story for you. But I've been I've been a self-study ever since, and in terms of getting certifications in different, you know, modalities and protocols, using all sorts of, not just food, but using homeopathics and herbs and all sorts of things to create protocols for specific health conditions. I specialize in gut health, but I do a lot with people with mold and yeast and those types of conditions. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and it's still unfolding as we speak.
That's beautiful. I love the journey where it led you into finding your true passion, like your soul mission, your soul purpose.
Yes.
And how
Yes.
does spirituality play into all of this?
Well, believe it or not, when I went back to school, when I decided to take this path and risk, I was
Yeah.
maybe 27 at the time when I made this switch. So I was, not young. I mean, it was,
That is,
I
yeah,
was young. I was young, but I'd already had, 10 years of professional experience under my belt in a different career. Like that can feel daunting, I think, when you've put in so much time in one direction, be like, I'm just going to bye to this whole thing that I had spent so much time doing. That can feel very scary to people. But when I did, would you believe that 25 pounds of inflammatory weight went away? My IBD, IBS ended up at some, like, through many different modalities. Like, I worked very hard at it, but it finally went away. Because I think there's a there is a big component to energy being held on your body when you are misaligned in other areas of your life. And it comes as no surprise to me that when I do work with people who come to me with body issues, with, IBS, IBD, anxiety, depression, once we get those physiological things resolved, it's like an onion starts to peel back. They're like, oh, I realize I don't like my job. I don't like this relationship. This isn't aligned with me anymore. And it like forces you to start cleaning up other areas of your life too. And I think that, the spiritual component is omnipresent in all of that. I mean, to me, being a spiritual person means living authentically true to yourself, and what lights you on fire, what makes you happy in your life. And if there's a cog in your wheel, whether it be a physical one, a mental one, an emotional one, a relationship, a job, if any of those things are out of alignment, it's going to make it harder for you to tap into that spiritual place. But the answers always live there anyway.
Yeah. Thanks for
So
answering that. I love that. And spirituality also found me randomly too. And it's usually you're either really spiritual already, or sometimes something happens and then it makes
rest
you,
upon you.
yeah. And I grew up not being super spiritual. I mean, we did rituals and stuff because I'm Chinese, but I knew there was always something higher source, but I didn't truly tap into my spirituality more so until I had infertility, and then I went through like
Right.
miscarriage, etc. And then my dad passed away, and it's just like it starts making you question, like, okay, what's going on, or what's more than just this reality that we live in,
Yeah.
And
Oh,
when I started tapping into it, like you said, on an energetic level, your body has trapped negative emotions. It does make you sick. And when you
yes.
build it out, the onion pieces or layers, you'll start noticing, like, wow, everything is all,
Connected.
all
Yeah.
connected. And
Yep.
so it's beautiful how I love how you take energy, the spirituality into your work. And so, do you work with a lot of clients who also have endometriosis? Because people with endometriosis usually have IBS, gut issues, anxiety, depression. We have all of that, like
Yeah.
hardcore gut issues.
Yeah. Yes. I wouldn't say I do have a few patients with endometriosis. I would say I work even more so with people with things like PCOS, or
Mhm.
um I also happen to work with people who are in perimenopause, menopause. There's lots of hormonal related stages of life that I support. But yeah, it is been impressive to me, even in this course of my own journey as a practitioner, to realize the expanse and the depth to which the gut plays a very important role in how our hormones function, how our, because I think it's important to call out the fact that your hormones are not just estrogen and progesterone either. When we talk about, most of the people that come see me have a version of anxiety, depression. Depending on the severity changes and varies depending on the patient, but so much of it is rooted in gut imbalances and gut dysbiosis and things that are, it's very interesting to me. I'm even as the person practicing this and helping to heal these things, I'm even always surprised, like, man, getting your gut in shape is essential.
Yeah.
To case in point, like, period, in order to have, for fertility benefits and outcomes, for weight loss benefits and outcomes, for giving yourself the mental motivation to make change in other aspects of your life, these all stem from gut health. It's very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, and I totally believe that gut health is so important, and we don't really in the Western medicine talk about how gut health is super important to your overall health. And so I started doing my own research, having endometriosis, and then I noticed, I was like, my gut health is off. Like, I just know it's affecting my mental health as well. It's affecting my infertility issues and all these things. And so once I started tapping into my gut health, I started seeing different changes, which is
Yeah.
pretty
What would you say was the most profound
hmm.
aspect of it that worked for you?
I started doing the bean protocol. So I followed a different, she's also a nutritionist, but she has endometriosis herself. And it's very interesting. You eat a lot of fiber because it has something where it binds with all the toxins to take it out of your
The,
body.
the lectins, maybe, or the
Yeah,
pec. Yeah.
there you go.
Mhm.
I knew you would know it. And it was like it's just a way for your body to just get more fiber to take out the toxins that
Yeah.
endometriosis or people with endometriosis have like 10% more toxins than other people because
Mm.
the way our body functions and the inflammation in the cell. I know I did a lot of research. I'm like you. I just like started going ham once I started knowing that I had
Yeah.
endometriosis. And so that gut health started I started noticing like when I ate more fiber, my body was showing up differently because I was getting so much pimples on my face. Like literally it was like now it's nothing. But dude, it was like big splotches of like big pimples.
Cystic type
Yes.
pimples. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like, so terrible and I was getting embarrassed because it was like literally patting
Sure.
my face. And so I started seeing a decrease in that. And I was
Yeah.
like, so interesting, right? Like
Yeah.
it will tell you what's going on. And so just eating that fiber. And then also what else I did was like taking, I think, certain like probiotics or prebiotics. I didn't really
Yeah.
understand the difference. Maybe you can tell us like what's the difference between probiotics versus prebiotics, right? It's
Sure.
two different things.
Yeah, the easiest way to understand is probiotic is the actual organism, the living organism that we need. So when you're taking a probiotic, you're taking a living organism or a budding living organism that will eventually like flourish in the gut. And a prebiotic is the food that they eat. So prebiotic, let's say you take a ton of probiotics and you don't feed those bacteria the right food, they're eventually going to die, right? So you want to, it's like having a garden outside and not watering it. It's like, why you planted the flower and then you just didn't water it, and like it's going to die, right? You need to feed it the right foods. Prebiotic foods and prebiotics in general are fibers. Are fiber rich, so fibers from insoluble and soluble fibers from plants and nuts and seeds and legumes and beans, like you were eating and mentioned. um, those all break down into foods that these bacteria, especially the good bacteria in our gut, eat. And then they in turn create these things called short chain fatty acids, which are help to tighten the junctures of your gut lining. It helps to it bypasses the blood brain barrier, so you get more energy to your brain. So when we feed the good bacteria, you'll see a surge of energy over time, and mental clarity and things like that a lot of people, when they have leaky gut syndrome or constipation, diarrhea, bloating, gas, you tend to have like also brain fog and these, because, your gut is out of balance. And, so anyway, prebiotic is the food, probiotic is the actual organism itself. So, it is really important, I think, just call out, because I'm getting a download to say it, is not all probiotics are for everybody, though. It is really important. Yes, there are certain strains like lactobacillus, acidophilus is like the most common, I think, that people know, but there's also the bifidobacterium family. These are all very good and normal bacteria that you'll find in lots of different probiotics, but it's not always that those are the ones that your body actually needs. There's trillions of different species that all, play different roles and do different things in the body. So I do encourage, if you have gut related issues or ancillary gut related issues, meaning anxiety, depression, things that aren't necessarily like having to do with your gut motility, but, are having to do with your brain health or your whatever, to get tested to see what your ratios are, because that will give you a very good indication of where you need to fill the holes better. Right. So I'm not going to give the same probiotic to every patient. I'm usually running specialty laboratory testing to see where they fall, so that I can understand where we need to fill in the gaps.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I don't know the difference. I just see prebiotics or probiotics. I'm like, what's the difference?
Yeah. The simple answer is that one's food and one's the actual organism. But
makes sense.
yeah, it's very interesting to me, because you pointed out with your body is always talking to you. It's always, whether it be in the form of aches and pains, or in your case, that cystic acne that you were experiencing, brain fog, anxiety, whatever it is, your body's constantly giving you intel into like, am I functioning well? It's always telling you, but lots of people aren't listening or don't take the time to. We're so quick to take a pill or want to reduce the symptom, or especially if it's one that's like a little bit uncomfortable to sit with, like an ache or pain or like a headache or something. We're so quick to want to get rid of it instead of just sitting and investigating it. Like, where's this come from? Like, or collecting the data to understand, oh, every time I eat this thing, I get this thing. Like, and being able to connect the dots. It's a topic I talk a lot about body literacy. But it's your body's constantly giving you feedback, and it's important. It's super important to give your body the time and space to understand what it means for you, so that you're not outsourcing your innate body's wisdom to other people. A lot of people go to doctors and expect them to know better, and they do. There's obviously, being a credentialed practitioner is like, they do know a lot more probably about a lot of things. They can help you connect dots, but being body literate to be able to advocate for yourself. Like, no, I know that I don't feel well. I know that this isn't right. So like, help me figure out what this means for me. That's a really important aspect of the work that I do with my patients too.
I love it. I feel like you're the same as me, where we empower our clients or your patients to listen to themselves and like give them tools to understand what their body's telling them, or what spiritually it can mean. Like, you're just there to help guide them and lead them into empowering themselves, because ultimately it's going to be your job to figure out what's going on, because that's your body. No one can tell you more so than yourself.
And also the skill of discernment to understand when something might feel like a certain way, but it's actually, something else. Anyway, yes, 100%. I mean, what we do in our very unique and different lines of work, but very similar in many ways, is truly just helping to like pave the way for somebody so they can see. It's hard to see the path when you're in it on your own. And it's hard to feel motivated and empowered to make the change, because, it's one thing to have the data and to know what you need to change. But then if you're not actionable or have the motivation to do it, that's a whole different thing. So it's a lot. It's so much nicer to have the support and, an external person to say, no, the ground is still soft over here. Keep on walking. You got this. Like, it's helpful to have that.
Yeah,
somebody in your corner to advocate for you.
exactly. Ooh, advocate. And that's such a powerful word, is to advocate, right? Advocate for something
Totally.
for yourself. And again, going with me back to endometriosis, like the Western medicine doesn't take endometriosis serious. Like it's getting better, but when I first got diagnosed with endometriosis, I literally had to advocate for myself to even get the diagnosis. And
Of course.
a lot of us have this issue when you have chronic inflammation or any of that that's like really rooted like in your body. And I had to learn to advocate for myself. It's wild. I was like, I just thought like growing up, the doctors or the Western medicine, like they're here to help you. But as I got older, I was like, okay, they're only taught so much at a certain point, and that's it.
Oh gosh. So yes, I think the thing that I've realized, because I couldn't relate to this more when I was in my severe IBS days, and literally, and I'm gonna be explicit here, but shitting my pants out of nowhere all the time. Like this was like a norm, like this is a significant impairment to daily living. I have so much sympathy and empathy for people who have gut issues. That's partly why I went into the line of work that I'm in. We talk about bowel movements a lot in my practice, so you get comfortable with it. But for the sake of like emphasis, like this was something I was living with. And I remember going and telling these doctors, like, this cannot be normal. And they're like, well, it's IBS. Like, you just, avoid, ultra processed foods, and, drink more water, and, get more sleep, and, just that was like the answer. It was almost like, oh, this is just your new normal, is essentially what they were telling me.
Yeah,
It's like, this can't be. But it's goes back to what I said right at the beginning of our call, that Western medicine is incredible for acute care.
yeah,
It is not incredible for chronic care. So the difference being, acute care, like we've lived so long as a human species because we have things like vaccines and medication and all of these things. So if you go get hit by a car today, the likelihood of you living is very high, because we have all of the technology for acute care, really quick acting care. We don't have that same knowledge or understanding or training, especially here in the States and in Western cultures, in chronic conditions. And chronic meaning they are slow to build and they last a long time, and sometimes their symptoms don't really feel that big for a long time, and then eventually one day you kind of like get, maybe your LDL, like just an example, one thing I see all the time in my practice, somebody's LDL kind of sort of is a little high, but it's not that big of a deal. No medications are needed. Don't change your lifestyle. Then, 3 years later, 4 years later, okay, now your LDL and your cholesterol is really high. And now you're just, so it feels subtle and it lasts a long time. It's not something that like hits you right away. That's chronic care. And you talk about chronic inflammation with your endometriosis. That's something that
yeah,
took a while. It didn't just show up one day. It was something that over the course of time happened, and then it started manifesting in infertility for you and in endometriosis for you. But like we're not trained, they're not trained to know what to do with that. And I think that that's the, where I live is like I'm very rooted in, and I want to have clinical science and data to back up all of the practices that I do, and also support people in the very real path. It feels new. Like for most people, like this, what we do feels new. It's not, but it feels new because it's different than what we're used to hearing. Like
yeah,
first person you're going to think of when you have IBS is to go to a gastroenterologist, and then you go to a gastroenterologist to do all these tests. They don't actually give you anything to help except for maybe a pill. Same
yeah,
with like, fertility people or OBGYNs, like the first thing that they wanted to prescribe to you for anything is like birth control. Just take birth
yeah,
control.
yeah,
And then everyone, now women are on birth control for like 20 plus years or more. And then they have a hard time getting pregnant after that, or they have nutritional deficiencies and all things, anyway, I could go off on
yeah,
tangents, but they're not trained. And we're no longer in a period of our existence as humans where we need like acute care isn't the primary thing. Like people aren't dying from bears outside or sepsis, which is like blood,
Yeah.
like that's not as as common as these chronic conditions, which are like heart disease, autoimmune conditions, COPD, all of these things that last a long time. So anyway, I digress, but
That
that's
makes
my
sense.
2 cents on the question.
Do you think that nutrition also plays a big role in gut health?
Kathy, is this a trick question? Is this a trick question? Of course. Of
What?
course.
I know,
Are,
but some people don't know this, right? Like this is
or some people are resisting, like they know it, but it's that they're not wanting to take the change. Oh
right.
my gosh. So food is medicine. It is medicine, or it's poison, depending on which type you're choosing. But it's something we do every single day. All of us are eating multiple times a day.
Mhm.
And you're either, with what you're choosing to eat, you're either giving your cells information and tools to then be able, through phytonutrients, antioxidants, vitamin C, omega-3, like all of these things are information and tools that your body can use, right? We're either giving you the tools to be able to repair and to, rejuvenate and all of these things, or we're giving it the poison, like added sugar and ultra processed foods and exorbitant amounts of seed oils and things that grow our inflammation and make it harder for us to heal. So it is the most obvious and the most important medicinal power that we have in our toolbox, that if you aren't starting here, I don't even know, you're gonna just keep getting the lesson until you come back to it. Like this is foundational. It's not whether it works or not. We know it does. We know it does. We know it is the most important, potent medicine that we have. It's really just a matter of, like, I think we live in a society right now where we don't want to put in the hard work.
True.
We are very resistant to feeling, to be challenged and to put in the hard work. And not to say, by the way, that this is all willpower either. That's a whole different conversation. But, I'm constantly at odds with like the GLP-1 market, right? Like that's just a shot you can take, but it's ultimately not teaching you how to make better food choices when you're not on it, or even when you are on it, right? You're going to be losing weight, but you're not ultimately like changing the environment in which you got to where you were to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
of course. The answer is of course.
Yeah.
Obvious.
So what are some tips you can give some people to just start eating more nutrient dense foods or more natural foods than processed?
Yeah.
Or which even food, what type of foods should we focus on, right? Like
Yeah.
prebiotic foods too that people always talk about. It's kind of, like that are important to eat, but I don't know how important it is unless, I don't know.
Oh my gosh, it's always important. I think, first of all, the best tip I have for people is to go slowly,
Mm.
because I think a lot of people feel like, I work with a lot of well, granted, the patients that I'm working with too have been in such dis-ease for so long that they are motivated to make a change, which I love, because they're ready to roll. But it doesn't, the most sustainable practices, and I know this sounds so annoying because I'm sure you've heard this before, but the most sustainable practices are the ones that you go very slow doing and integrating in a way that actually finds a place in your habitual lifestyle, rather than it's January and it's the new year, for instance, and I'm going to overhaul my whole diet and everything's going to change. And you do it great for a month and then you're overwhelmed because it wasn't ever really integrated into your life. It's amazing if you can do that for a month, because even a month is great, but like that's not going to last you. And ultimately with food and nutrition, you want practices that fit into your lifestyle and are sustainable and they feel good to do. So you do them all the time, right? Like this is the results of nutrition and lifestyle changes. They compound. They're not going to be overnight changes, but they're ones over time that they really benefit you, right?
Yeah.
So go slow, go really slow. But ultimately from, everybody's in a unique body. Everyone has a different lifestyle. And, so I don't like to give sweeping recommendations, but in general, for the lack of, to be generalized, the more whole you can keep your diet, the better. And by whole, I mean, the more closely a food is to its natural source, the better. So for instance, having brown rice instead of having a brown rice cake, right? It's brown rice changed and modified from its original form. Like having food in its original form is always going to be the better choice. That's what we mean by whole foods. We mean foods that haven't been changed or have been minimally changed from its original source. And ideally organic, if you can. I know organic food is expensive. Groceries in general are incredibly expensive right now. So proceed with, as best you can, but organic also reduces the pesticide exposure that you have in your foods that can be toxic overload that you were mentioning before in your own scenario. And as many fruits and vegetables as possible. I talk a lot about, and the prebiotics that we talked about earlier are found in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. So the more you can get those good prebiotic foods from whole, rich sources like strawberries and quinoa and, zucchinis and squashes and all of these really delicious foods, the more, you're going to be supporting your gut in the long run. But I talk a lot about being plant forward. So as much as you can prioritize eating plants first and then animal products after as a supplement rather than the main staple of your dish, that's going to do magnificent things to your health. I mean, and again, starting slow, like maybe choose one meal a day for a while that you focus on a plant forward meal, and then, do the same thing you would for the other two, and see if that sticks over time. See if you can find recipes that really make you excited and you love, that you want to keep making, right? Finding joy in all of this is a critical piece of the puzzle.
Oh, and I loved how you said plant forward meals instead of protein, because in our culture, it's like everybody's always like, how are you going to make your meal more protein based, right?
Yeah, protein's having a moment right now.
Yeah, right. It's a thing. And I was like, okay, so interesting. So yeah, why not having protein as the main source, but as a secondary?
So and I want to be clear that there are plant-based sources of protein, and then there's animal-based sources of protein. I think that are typical, like the chickens and the beefs and the eggs and the things that people typically go for. And we need protein. I don't want to vilify protein at all. Like every single process in our body, from DNA production, RNA synthesis, to enzyme production, to hormone production, all rely on having amino acids, which is the components of protein. But you can get them from plants, and you don't always have to get them from animals. And the reason that I personally, and being a spokesperson for my company L-Nutra, am so adamant about this is that we have found in our research that eating excessive amounts of protein from either source, but primarily from animal-based sources, it actually does it even more so, will accelerate the age of your cells. So, and this is true of, it can be true of carbohydrates as well, but proteins are particularly problematic, I think, because people, especially now, because people are eating so many of them. But if you don't, proteins are they help to build up your body, right? So you've heard that amino acids are the building blocks of your body. They help to build. They're anabolic. They're building up muscles. They build up enzymes. They create things from them. If your body doesn't have anywhere to grow, like if you're not eating a bunch of protein and then lifting weights at the gym, or if you're not training for something, or healing from something where your body is trying to build itself back up, if you're taking in all of this growth right, through proteins, and your body has nowhere to grow. It's not like it's not going to keep growing. It's going to keep growing. And it does that by proliferating the replication of your cells. So your cells get older faster. That's, if we want to keep ourselves younger for a longer period of time, which for us, the critical age that we talk about this is if you're between the ages of 18 and 65. This is the critical period where you want to slow down aging, right? You want to make it as slow as possible so you can live in a really healthy young body for as long as possible. In this period of time, and granted there are specific use cases, like, again, if you're healing or if you're a massive weightlifter, or if you're, depending on what your lifestyle looks like and where you are in your health journey, you will need different levels of proteins. There isn't just one swath recommendation for everybody. It's highly, highly personalized to your lifestyle and what you're going through. But if you're eating too much for your body, specifically from animal-based sources of protein, you will be accelerating the rate of your biological age, period. So but plant-based sources of proteins, yes, they will turn on that growth factor and help repair your body the same way, but it doesn't accelerate the rate of cellular replication as fast as animal-based sources of protein. So it's a slower modality in that way. So we suggest prioritizing plant-based sources of proteins, like you talked about beans, beans, legumes, lentils, nuts and seeds, tofu tempeh, if you like those types of foods, peas, all of these things are really wonderful sources of plant-based protein. Even whole grains, quinoa, whole wheat, all have, certain amount of proteins, plant-based proteins in it as well. But if we prioritize that on a plate and we make that the main staple, and use animal proteins a couple times a week as a supplement, like a really nourishing supplement rather than your main staple every day, that mentality and that mindset will do massive things for your health in the long run. And we've seen that time and time again, especially with people with cardiovascular disease, people who are looking to lose weight, people who are looking to improve their cognitive ability, Alzheimer's, dementia, cognition. Like, we're seeing it everywhere. And it's funny to me because it's highly polarizing to tell people, like, hey, don't eat so much animal proteins. Like, people get very emotionally attached to their animal proteins because it is cultural. It's cultural. It's what we've been doing forever, right? I mean, you plan around the chicken, you don't plan around the broccoli, like, people don't think about it that way. I think that the broccoli is the side and the chicken's the main thing, right? So it's hard to change that mentality. But
yeah, it's again, our culture has taught us that way. But if you think about it, back in the days, our ancestors, meat was not as common, right? What did they eat? Berries, vegetables, whatever was accessible right away.
We're herbivores. We only have 2 incisors.
Yeah.
Only 2. It means that we can cut meat if we need to, but it's not the primary type of food that we have these grinders. Like, we're supposed to be eating plants. And yeah, we did have animal-based proteins. Thank you for bringing that up, because it's one of my favorite ways to explain to people. Of course we had meat, but we didn't have it all the time. It was something we were able to catch a big game, let's say once a month, and you shared it with your whole tribe, and you ate all the pieces, and the rest of the time you were foraging and hunting, or you were gathering, other crops. That's how we evolved for quite literally, like, thousands of years. And then in the last 100 years, mass agriculture became a thing, and we were no longer a nomadic species where we would travel with our food. We stayed in one place and we started growing our own food. And now we were, growing only a couple types of crops because they were easier to grow all year round versus, like, all the diversity of crops we used to have before when we used to travel on foot. There's so many things that go into this, but the mentality we have to get out of is this: what the habits that we have are based on the last 100 years that we've been humans, 150 maybe. The rest of the time we were traveling, we were eating 100+ grams of fiber every day from tons of different types of plants and berries and seeds and things like that. So we when you talk about this paleo diet, or that, eating like our ancestors. Like our ancestors ate a lot of plants.
Yeah.
We eat a lot of plants. Let's get real historical, because we were eating a ton of plants.
Yes.
And we did have protein, but not as, it was sparingly.
Exactly. And lately, I've been looking at all of what we've been taught in the last 100 years. And it's interesting how we talk about it today, because I've been shifting my mentality from, I used to be paleo and do all of that. And like, protein's so important. How am I going to get my protein in? And then I started noticing, like, okay, wait a second. This doesn't make any sense. Why are we eating so much protein that even if you eat so much protein, it makes you constipated, or it can make you constipated, right?
If you're not having greens.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I started noticing that with my daughter. I'm like, why is she getting constipation? Because she's not having a full balanced meal. She
Yeah.
hasn't had enough fruits and vegetables. And then I started reframing, like, okay, she's missing the two most essential things, but our society says protein is the most essential thing. Then why is she having issues? And I was like,
Yeah.
it makes sense. So I started doing some research.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, fruits. We used to eat lots of fruits. And then that's now our society has said fruits has high, it's like a lot of sugar for you. But I'm like, okay, who cares? It's good sugars, right? Like, don't eat it excessively where it's like, right? Like, you're going to get health issues.
There's so much,
right?
Yeah, there's so much nuance. I think that's the thing that's always going to be the case with nutrition, is that there's nuance, and there's good and bad versions of everything. Like there's the good fats, and then there's bad fats. There's plant-based sources of protein and animal-based sources of proteins. And there's new, like the types and the quality and building a plan that is uniquely for you also in your lifestyle. Like what your daughter needs as a growing young child is very different than what you need as a mom, a busy mom on the go. And it's different. So I urge people, if you find yourself getting emotionally charged over conversations like this, to check what is so inflexible, because nutrition, your requirements are going to change daily, but certainly throughout your lifespan. Like I was just pregnant. I had a very different nutritional needs than I did pre-pregnancy, and I'm going to have very different needs a year from now when I'm not so postpartum. And as a growing, you're going to change. It's going to change. And if you are so inflexible to not ebb and flow with what your body needs in any given moment, it's going to make it your health journey very challenging. So I urge curiosity. I urge flexibility in understanding and listening to what your body needs, because there's we need carbohydrates, by the way. Can we just say that for one quick second? Carbohydrates are critical. It's the fastest, type of energy your body can consume and use. And we've been demonizing a specific type of carbohydrate, but no one's talking about that. No one's saying, oh, it's the processed added sugar that we don't want, but we do want all these other great carbs. Like no one's creating that nuance in the conversation. They're just saying carbs are bad.
Yeah.
And now everyone's avoiding carbs, and carbs are literally the biggest food group we have. Mm-hmm. And we should be eating about 60% of our diet should be coming from carbs. And now where people are just avoiding them altogether and replacing them for a ton of protein, right? Like the ratios are off, the nuance isn't there, the personalization isn't there. And people are walking around with these stringent ideas of what they should be doing, when in fact it will change all the time. So the more staunch you are in your opinion, the harder it is for you to find your balance, because you're inevitably going to need different things at different stages of your life.
Yeah, that is so true. Thank you for sharing that. And I love how your mindset is about all of this. Like,
yeah, we need more flexibility. That's all. That's my main message, I think, is to be curious and flexible with and like truly tap in. What is your body saying? I mean, you might not know right away. I think that's why I love data collection so much, like laboratory testing and journaling. And sometimes tracking can be helpful if that's not triggering for you, but like tracking to understand what foods triggered what at what time. All those things are super, super helpful to understand, like getting to know yourself. Get to know yourself. It's will do wonders. And it's really fun, actually. I mean, I know it's scary to some people, but it's really fun. Like once you get into the weeds, it's like you're kind of a walking experiment on this earthly plane. Like I'm here in this human body. What kind of things can I do to improve it?
Yeah, when you make it fun like that, when you make it not restrictive, like how we're taught, or we make it like it's another chore. It's like empowering yourself to truly love your body, to listen to it, and to learn what works for you. Right?
Yes.
In the end, that's what it's all about. And this is why we're both here, just assisting, helping people get there.
Yes. 100%. 100%.
I love you so much. I love all of your insights, your knowledge. Like, you made everything seem so easy to do, which is great. And I love how you can open up like these conversations and make it light,
I appreciate that. It's easy when you work with somebody that's like-minded. It's so nice. I don't have to convince you of anything. You already know. You're walking proof of what can happen when you take care of yourself. I mean, you went through such a journey yourself, and you have a beautiful baby girl, right? Or not so baby anymore. She's like 4.
She's
4.
3.
Almost 4. Yeah, you're walking proof that you can, when you start listening, but listening too, by the way, is physical always, but it's all, you mentioned the spiritual part. When you start listening, get it quiet, get curious, you and then take action on the things, or at least ask for help if you don't know too. Miracles happen, and by miracles I mean the action that you took, it makes you did it.
You too. You overcame MS, and you have a 1-year-old son. Like, hey, anybody out
there, I kept alive for an entire year. That's amazing.
No, but anybody who has health issues, who want to become a mom, it's like, it's possible.
Oh, it's possible. It's possible. And your body is, especially the female body, is like the most incredible thing in the entire world. But yes, it's possible, and you can. And I think getting curious and asking the right questions and asking for the right help is key.
Yes. Thank you so much for today and spreading all of your knowledge and being here. Last but not least, where can people find more about you and your work and all the incredible things that you're doing?
Yes. You can find me personally on most of the socials anyway. I'm primarily on Instagram, I would say, but at Health and Melness, HealthandMellness, Health and Melness. And if you're interested at all, we didn't talk as much about the longevity piece, which sounds like we need a V2.
Yes, I think so.
But yeah, for all the longevity tips and products and things nutrition that I use in my everyday life is L-Nutra and Prolon. And you can find those at prolonlife.com. But we should probably talk more about that next time.
Yes, we should. I still have so much more. I really had way more questions to ask you too, like about fasting, like how many clients you've had with, encountering parasites, etc.
Yeah.
There's just so much fun things about gut health. Like,
dive in. It is a wonderful, wonderful wonderland down here. Yes. We'll do a V2.
Okay. So we're going to have a V2. So all the listeners, you just heard a little tidbit of what we're going to talk about in V2. And it's going to be like amplified version of this. So
yes, please. This is your foundation. Wet the whistle. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me on Ignite Your Power, the Kathy Mou Podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, take a deep breath and know this: you're exactly where you're meant to be. If you're feeling called to go deeper, I'd love to support you. You can work with me one-on-one or book a numerology guidance card reading with me. All are in the show links below. And if this episode supported you in any way, please share with someone who needs it, leave a review, or take a screenshot and tag me on social media. Your support helps this message reach more souls who are ready to step into their power. Until next time, keep choosing yourself, keep trusting your journey, and keep living your bliss soft life. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!